everyone, welcome back to Rooted in the Ozarks. My name is Heather. Today we're going to be doing a little bit something on the lighter side. We're going to do a blackberry spring salad. So we've got some blackberries that are going to go in here. We've got a little bit of honey roasted pecans. We've got some feta and some beautiful green onions. So we're going to get started first. We're going to put an apple in here. So I've got diced up. This is a pink lady apple. And so you want an apple that's going to be a little bit, on the sturdier side, something that's not going to be as sweet. And pink ladies are wonderful for this. So we're just going to dice these up. You can leave them, in slices if you want to. I do that sometimes. I just like it like this. That way they're more uniform throughout. So we're going to dice this, and then we're going to toss it in a little bit of lemon juice. That way to keep it from browning. If you want to toss it in a little bit of the orange juice that we're also going to use for the dressing, you can definitely do that. I still add maybe just a little bit of orange juice or a little bit of lemon juice to it, just to make sure that it's got enough in there. All right, so we've got that done. And get this over here. Just got some bottled lemon juice here. Normally I do prefer to keep, real lemons on hand. But sometimes I use them all, or I don't feel like leaving the house, if I don't have any. And I always keep a bottle of this and lime juice at home, just in case. All right, so we'll toss those around. And also by just doing a little bit on there, they're not gonna be too acidic either. So we're gonna set these to the side, and we're gonna get started on our dressing. So our dressing for this is super simple. We're gonna start out with a little bit of olive oil here. And you can measure it if you like. I just, sort of pour it in there. We've been making it a few times now. All right, so we've got some beautiful olive oil in there. We're also going to use a little bit of balsamic vinegar. If you have a balsamic reduction at home, you can also use that. Just some in there, a couple of those. Our next ingredient that we're going to add into this is blackberry jam. And so this is just a seedless organic blackberry jam that we're going to put in here. And actually how this started was over Christmas, I was having a Christmas party with some of my friends, and so I was wanting to do crostinis with, a herbed goat cheese with some blackberries on top and prosciutto and honey, and it was just going to be wonderful on a balsamic reduction. Well, we didn't have any blackberries, so I had to think of something else to do with it, so we did blackberry jam on it, and it worked out perfectly. So that's how I've been making it now, and if we do have blackberries, put some of those on there, but if not, the jam works perfectly. So we're just going to add, a couple of spoonfuls of this in here. And I'm going to go ahead and give that a stir before we add the rest of our stuff in here. And this is just going to sort of bring everything together with the blackberries and our other ingredients that we have going on in here. And I like making these too in a mason jar. Just pop the lid on there and shake it up. You can make, maybe twice as much as this and keep it for the week for different salads. You can definitely do that. We've got some honey here. This is Arkansas honey. It's a little bit out of the Ozarks. It's from Jonesboro, but it's still Arkansas honey. Add a little bit of that in here, which I would say, I like sweets, but not a ton, but I love honey. So honey and coconut, if it's got one of those two things in it, I'm sold on it. We're also gonna add a little bit of orange zest in it. So we've got an orange here, and we're gonna cut that here in just a minute. But we're just gonna take our zester here. And you can get the long zesters, for citrus. I found one of these and been using it ever since. It works just as good as my other one did, and that way I don't have as much stuff in my cabinet. So we're just going to take, and you can set it on the cutting board because I usually end up getting it all over the place. Just go around. You don't want to get any of that white part in there because that's the bitter part. And you're always going to have some on the end, so just sort of check that side as well, and you're going to get so much flavor out of this orange peel. All right, so we've got that in here. Give that a stir. It also has a nice bright orange color to it as well. And I also like to cut it open and add just a little bit of the juice in there as well. And then you could also, take and cut these up, add them in the salad, be perfect. All right. So we've got our dressing here. We're gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper to it as well. I'm a firm believer in fresh cracked pepper for everything. Has a better flavor. So, you know, if you use like bottled lemon juice and stuff like that, for the most part, that's, you know, that's okay, but you gotta have the fresh ground pepper in it. Put a little bit of salt in there. All right. Perfect. So we're gonna set this to the side. We've got our beautiful spring mix here. You could use spinach, you could use arugula, you could use spring mix, you could use lettuce. This is from Honeysuckle Farms, which is also here in Fayetteville, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I like using a lighter salad for this as opposed to maybe all spinach because, you know, you want it to be light and fluffy. We're gonna add some heavy things into it, but you could definitely add some spinach into it as well. If I was at home, I'd probably add some spinach into mine. So our ingredients that we're going to add in here, we have got some honey roasted pecans, and I made those this morning in the oven, about 10 minutes. You could also do walnuts as well. The first time we made this, I actually did use walnuts, and then this morning realized I didn't have any left. Pecans are a great substitute. So again, whatever you have at home, you can definitely use. So we're going to add some of those in there. We've also got our apple that we chopped up earlier. And this is a really quick salad, you know, to sort of throw together if you've got this stuff at home. So we're just gonna go ahead and assemble it here. We've got our apple we'll put on there. And it was just up until probably a couple years ago before I would even put fruit on a salad. I thought it was the weirdest thing, it was super gross, and now I love it. These apples add a nice crisp crunch to it as well. Okay, add a few more. We'll keep those for ourselves for a little bit later. We also have some beautiful bacon that I cooked earlier. This is from Garner Hill. Bacon is wonderful. We've talked about them before in different episodes. Use their grease in some different recipes, just great. So now we're actually using the bacon of it. And you don't have to add the bacon if you don't want to. If you don't eat meat, it's just as good without bacon. But if you do, you know that bacon makes everything better. All right, so we'll just add a few pieces around there. Perfect. Also, if you had maybe some prosciutto, you could use that as well. It'd be really good in here. All right, get all that bacon in there. Wonderful. We are also going to add in some feta. This is from White River Creamery, and this is the goat feta. They have a goat feta and they have a cow feta as well. I think the goat cheese sort of adds a little bit of flavor punch to it that this salad really needs. If you're not too much, you know, into the goat cheese or feta, you know, you could leave it out completely or add a milder flavored cheese to it. You do want something that's sort of going to crumble, so we're just going to, you know, break off a piece of that there and sort of crumble this on here. And get that all around here. And normally when I make these too, like if I make it in for like a party or for a large group of you know, co-workers or friends, I'll usually end up putting these extra ingredients on the side as well. That way if they want to add a little bit more to it, they can. Got all of that in there. We're also going to add in our beautiful blackberries. So we're not quite to local blackberry season yet, but we're getting there. My blackberry vines have already started budding out. They've taken over the whole backside of the back of my house. I had to get in and sort of trim them out. They were getting into some rose bushes that I have and elephant ears, but they just go crazy. So if you plant them, be prepared. They will take over everywhere. All right. We'll also leave a few of these little extra ones here for us. Now we're going to add in our pecans. So these are still a little bit sticky from that honey. It's just going to make it even better. Just sort of soak in there. Sort of take some of the bite out of, you know, that goat cheese. Sort of break those apart. Perfect. We'll add a couple more in there. All right, we'll set these to the side. And last but not least, we're going to add our green onions into this. So I love green onions. They add such a nice flavor. You know, they're small and compact, and they're actually a fun little science experiment. So what you can do is, we'll cut the bottoms of these off because that's what we're going to use. take this part, you would normally compost it, and actually if you stick it back into a jar of water, I keep mine on my windowsill in my kitchen, these green parts will regrow themselves. So you can have green onions that, keep regrowing. I usually let mine go about 2 or 3 times, and then I compost them. After a while, they start getting real lengthy and kind of weird, but if you can get 3 growths out of them, that's awesome. And it's fun too if you've got kids, they can actually see it regrowing itself. So you can take a knife, cut these if you want to. I prefer scissors, that way they're not mashed down or you end up with one whole green onion that didn't get cut all the way through. And you can cut them right on top if you want to. You can cut them over here, that way you can sort of place them where you like them to be. One over here. And there's a whole bunch of different, vegetables that regrow themselves. I had actually had some romaine lettuce and I put it out in a garden bed that I'm not using currently to see, if my chicken wanted it. And I guess she didn't want to eat it, but what happened was somehow it ended up to where the bottom part was on the ground and it started to root and regrow itself. So I covered it up with some chicken wire, so hopefully I can grow some lettuce out of that as well. And that was completely by chance. All right, so we've got some beautiful green onions on there. Now we're gonna go ahead and add our dressing on top of it. You could serve it just like this. If you want to, you can go ahead. I like to put some of the dressing on it. That way it can get down in those leaves, sort of get on that goat cheese, into those pecans, those blackberries, all of that sort of help flavor everything up. And just take and sort of drizzle that across here. Be careful if you pour it because the olive oil is separated from the rest of it, so you might end up with one spot with lots of olive oil and the rest of it with all your flavors in there. All right, and then we'll set this to the side. We'll serve this up. You've got a salad that's not boring, it's beautiful, it's packed full of flavor, packed full of springtime favorites. It's sure to be a hit at any party or any social gathering. Hey guys, welcome back to Rooted in the Ozarks. Today we'll be making a monster of a sandwich. It's a collaboration between tons of my favorite things. So we're gonna be doing fried chicken. We've also got a waffle that we're gonna be making out of biscuit mix. We've got a spicy spring mix salad that's gonna go on top of it. And of course we're gonna finish it off with a fried egg. So it's kind of a play on chicken and waffles, kind of a play on chicken and biscuits. It's kind of just a mashup of all of these delicious flavors together. So we're gonna get started with our biscuit waffle first. So we're gonna get our batter made for it. And so right here I've got a 1.5 cups of self-rising flour. You don't need to go out and buy a bag of self-rising flour just for certain recipes. You can make it yourself with a little bit of all-purpose flour, salt, and baking powder. So just mix that all together and you've got your self-rising flour. So we're gonna get this in a large bowl here. Set that to the side. We're also gonna add in a cup of buttermilk to this. This is just gonna give it more in-depth of a flavor. Again, this is something that you don't need to go out and buy buttermilk. You can make it yourself. Use 1 cup of milk. I like to use whole milk when I'm cooking just for the added flavor. 1 cup of milk, 1 tablespoon of white vinegar. Let it set for 5 minutes and you've got yourself some buttermilk. So that, will save you money there. If you do want to go out and buy buttermilk, or maybe you found some delicious buttermilk or whatever the reason is, you can also freeze it as well, like in ice cube trays, and then take it out, pop it into a freezer safe container, and then use it that way. So we've got 1 cup of that in here. We're going to go ahead and give this a stir. We're also going to be adding in a little bit of salt and pepper, some butter, and an added ingredient in this, we're going to add in some diced jalapeno. So this is going to give it a nice, sort of spicy but not too spicy flavor. It's just going to go with everything very, very well. All right, so we've got our batter there. Let's add in a little bit of salt and a little bit of our fresh cracked pepper. Okay, we're also going to be using 1/2 stick of butter. And this is the unsalted butter. That's the one that I normally buy, and just add salt to a recipe if I need to. So we're going to go ahead and dice this into small pieces. That way it distributes evenly in there. You can also take and grate it with a cheese grater. That works perfectly, and that will get you some really tiny, small, grated up butter that will be beautiful in this and melt perfectly. Okay, we've got our waffle iron going over here, and it looks like it's ready to go. So we'll be able to pop these in as soon as we get done with them. Okay, so let's get this butter distributed in here. And I'm gonna go ahead and add some of our diced jalapenos. So you could use, if it's in the summertime, you're growing your own jalapenos, you could use some of those. Might use a little bit less, they're gonna be a little bit more spicy. I love these, they're not spicy. They have a nice flavor to them, and they're already diced up for you, so you don't have to dice them up. So we're going to get some of these out of here. I always try to keep these in the fridge. And I usually make a big mess with them, so I'm gonna use a spoon. Okay, and it goes over a little bit, that's fine. We're just gonna get all of those in there. We're gonna set these to the side because we're gonna also use them here in a little bit in another part for this recipe. So let's get these stirred in. Beautiful. Okay, so our waffle iron is ready to go. We're just gonna go ahead and get these popped in here. So, and I used some coconut oil earlier to sort of, help grease it in there so it doesn't stick. So we're just gonna pour some into this side. Pour some over here. So to try not to make a huge mess with it. And then we're just gonna sort of help shape them. And I can never get waffles to come out perfectly, but it doesn't matter because when you're gonna add fried chicken and an egg and everything else to this, no one's even gonna notice that these waffles aren't perfect. All right, so we're gonna shut this and let those cook. All right, so while those are cooking, we're gonna go ahead and get our salad mixed up for this, because with this, you need something a little bit fresh to add on top of it. So again, we're gonna use some of our spring mix here from Honeysuckle Gardens. And we'll just do, let's see, about 2 handfuls of it. And this also keeps well, so if you don't use all of it, just pop it in the fridge and then you can add it to recipes later on. Okay, so we've got this. We're also gonna be making a little bit of a dressing to go on top of this, so we're gonna do that in a separate bowl. We're gonna be using some maple syrup. We're also gonna be using a little bit of smoked paprika that we use in so many recipes. I love it. Olive oil. And then here's where you've got an option. You can either use lemon juice in here. You need something acidic that's gonna sort of brighten up those flavors of that greens you've got in there. So you can use your lemon juice if you want to, or you can use some juice from the diced jalapenos. So that's gonna give it a nice flavor, sort of help tie everything together on this. So we are going to grab a bowl here. Let's use this one. And get some of our maple syrup in here. Perfect. And a little bit of our juice. Okay. Some of our smoked paprika. All right, we're gonna give this a stir. And we're gonna add a dash of olive oil to it. All right. So it's super simple, easy little dressing. Bring all the flavors together in here. We're just gonna pour this over top. Get all of those out of there. Set that to the side. All right. And now we just want to sort of toss these greens in it, make sure that they're all nice and coated. Okay, so let's set that over here. Let's check on our waffles. See how they're doing. And they're looking beautiful. And also the chicken, which is one of the main parts. I went ahead and cooked this earlier today. Real simple to do. I just took some chicken breasts from across the creek chicken, marinated them in some buttermilk and a few different spices, let them set overnight in the fridge, and then coated them and baked them in the oven today. And they turned out perfectly. They're nice and moist. That's a really awesome way to do it. Okay, we're also going to either use a little bit of coconut oil or a little bit of butter, just sort of help keep that pan nice and smooth in there so it comes out evenly. So we're gonna turn that on. I usually turn it about halfway up and let it heat up slowly. We got our egg out already, and so I'm gonna grab our bowl. This has still got a little bit of our maple syrup, our olive oil mixture in it, which is totally fine. And this is where we're gonna have a little bit of fun with this fried egg. So we're actually gonna pop the white in there first, let it cook for a couple of minutes, have our egg yolk separate, and then add it in there at the end. And just let it cook just till it attaches, and it's so, so good. Let's check on this waffle again while our oil's heating up. Okay, so they are getting nice and brown. And one way you can know if your waffles are done, if you don't have the automatic timer on them, is if they pull away easily. So these are pulling away perfectly, so we know that these waffles are done. Actually, we'll set it over here. Let it cool down before we put it on that plate. Okay, so our oil is melting nicely there. We have got our beautiful salad that we're gonna put on top of this. I'm gonna go ahead and add my chicken to this while it's still nice and warm. And you can take your maple syrup. I like to drizzle just a little bit across the chicken. You don't want too much in there because you don't want that, waffle to get soggy. So let's go ahead and add this to our plate here. Take just a little bit of that, sort of drizzle that on top of the chicken there, give it some nice sweet maple flavor. All right, so we've got our oil here. So we're gonna pop this open. Grab a hold of the egg yolk there in your hand. Let all that white get down there of it. Okay, perfect. And then we're gonna let this cook for a little bit, and then we're gonna go ahead and add our egg yolk on top of it. And I'm just gonna pop this egg yolk right here in this dish. This one's safe. I can move it easily to get it on top of here. All right, beautiful. So we don't want to move it yet. We want to let this cook. We also, want to make sure, I do like to scoot them around a little bit, see they're not sticking. And by starting it out, cooking it on a little bit lower, you're not going to get that ribbon effect around there. And, all right, so now we can scoot it around. We know it's not sticking to anything. And we're going to let that cook just a little bit longer. Then we're going to pop our egg yolk on top of there. Okay, so we've got our chicken on our waffle here. I'm going to go ahead and put that right on top of there. That way when this is done, we can just scoot it right on top of there. And you can go ahead and put a little bit of your greens on this if you want to. I like to add some on there. And then also from the heat of the egg, that sort of helps wilt it down, and it tastes really, really good. Make sure we got a bunch of that beautiful salad on there. All right, so our egg yolk is done. And now we're gonna take, and you can use a whisk, or not a whisk, excuse me, use a spoon, use a spatula, use whatever you're using, but have something so if this egg yolk just goes crazy and decides to go off completely, you've got something to catch it. So basically you just want to hold it there long enough that it will attach itself. So once it attaches itself, and then take just, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and then it will actually be done. So that way you don't have to worry about flipping it. I know when I flip them, I'm gonna break them all over the place. And it's beautiful. If you want it to look absolutely beautiful and stunning, take a mason jar ring and sort of go around there, and you'd have a perfectly round egg there. Okay, so our egg is just about done. This is always the terrifying part. It's like, it's gonna come out perfectly or it's gonna break all over the place. So this is really scary. But before we do that, gotta add some more of our fresh pepper to it and a little bit of our salt. There's nothing, to me, more beautiful than an egg that's cooked perfectly with just the right amount of pepper on it, a little bit of salt, unless it's when the egg is cracking open over something. So we're gonna grab our spatula, get it underneath of there. Then we're gonna take that egg right on top. Beautiful. It's always like the best feeling in the world when that comes off without breaking and everything's right, and oh my gosh. And to me, there's nothing better than a sandwich or a biscuit or a waffle or all three And you also want to add a little bit of that maple syrup there on top of that egg. This is definitely messy, so you're going to want to get your paper towels or your towels. You're going to want to eat it with a fork and a knife. And there you go. You've got a gorgeous hybrid of a beautiful sandwich. You've got your waffle, you've got your biscuit, you've got your fried chicken, you've got your egg. Got a little bit of your salad there. You can serve a little bit more on the side if you want to. And this is just the most perfect thing that you will probably ever eat in your life. It's so good. One of my favorites.